John Heyman of the New York Post reports the Braves want to sign a veteran catcher, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Friday, March 7th. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on Twitter, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. Speaking of, today over on the newsletter, we're going to be writing about Atlanta's spring breakout roster. That was announced yesterday. We're going to talk a little bit about the possibility of it being able to win that matchup versus the Tigers, and maybe how it stacks up to the rest of the league, and how it's different from the proposed spring breakout roster that we wrote about back in February. So go subscribe, again, bravestoday.com. You can free or paid. Those paid memberships go towards our reporting trips and helping us cover this team and farm system as comprehensively as possible. And later in the show, I want to talk about some of the award odds that are out there, right? There are a lot of Braves on the board for a lot of awards, including some front runner spots. So we're going to talk about both pitching and hitting and where Braves are on the board in a bunch of different statistical achievements this season. But first, John Heyman of the New York Post last night reported that the Atlanta Braves are interested in signing a veteran catcher. And I think national media is construing this situation a little bit. So let's get into what he reported and what's actually likely to happen. And full disclosure, I did not see this when Heyman first reported this. I woke up to a text from somebody saying, hey, this doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Let's talk about it. And apparently, according to John Heyman, the Braves are interested in either Yasmani Grandal or James McCann. And just in case you've been under a rock this week, to recap the situation that's going on, Sean Murphy has a broken rib. He was hit by a fastball from Miami's Will Kempner last week. And he's expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks from the weekend, right? From last weekend. So his opening day very likely will not be on the roster because opening day is 3 weeks from yesterday. And so we've talked this week about, do you promote Drake Baldwin? Do you have Kurt Casale or Sandy Leone on the roster? What do you do? Quick correction to make, by the way. I talked on Wednesday about how the retention bonus could be used to keep Casale in the organization. Had somebody reach out to me that the newest CBA has actually removed the retention bonus. So Atlanta does not have the ability to automatically override an opt-out by paying the bonus. Now, Atlanta could still offer to pay the player, put it in writing, offer to pay the player to not opt out and to stick in the majors. You can't put that in the contract, but you can offer them like a roster bonus if they are in the organization on whatever X day, right? So Atlanta, you can't explicitly in the CBA, it says you can't explicitly offer the bonus to not allow them to opt out. They have to have the ability to opt out. But you could put a roster bonus in the contract if they're still in the organization on day one of the regular season or something like that. So you can functionally still do it. It just, you can't force them to stay. They have to have the option, and you can then choose to reward them if they choose to stay. I don't know if the Braves did that. It is entirely possible they do not have any sort of provision in there for Casale, and he may just elect to leave. Little disclosure there. Wanted to clean that up a little bit from Wednesday's show. But here's the thing about Yasmani Grandal or James McCann. They don't give you anything that you don't already have in camp. Okay? So James McCann has been the backup to Adley Rutschman the last 2 seasons. He's played a combined 134 games. Really nice kind of total. Played 69 games in 23, played 65 games in 24. Combined those 2 years, he hit 228 with a 657 OPS. So 87 OPS plus, 13 points below league average, right? But he's not there to be an offensive guy. He's there to be a defensive guy, right? Here's the thing for McCann. He is considered to be good at game calling, right? Pitchers like him. Statistically, he's a mixed bag defensively. Things we can actually measure. We can't, other than pitcher ERA, we can't really measure how well you handle a pitching staff. That's not a thing we can quantify yet. James McCann was slightly above average in catching base stealers while he was in Baltimore, 23.5%. He did not have a single passed ball in 2024, which is legitimately impressive. You have to be honest. Legitimately impressive that he did not have a passed ball. He was behind the plate for 559 and 2/3 innings. He did commit 8 errors, but no passed balls. He had 2 passed balls and 3 errors in 2023 and 479 innings. Pitch framing, he is below average. So he's a plus blocker. He is slightly above average on caught stealing. And he is below average on pitch framing. Okay. Yasmani Grandal, conversely, spent his age 35 season with the Pirates last year. He had 5 pass balls and 560 defensive innings. He had the worst caught stealing rate in baseball, 8.3%, 6 of 72. StatCast says that his sprint speed, just fun fact, is first percentile in baseball. He's one of the slowest players in baseball. But his pop time, 2.09, is the worst among 83 catchers who qualified via StatCast. So that's why his caught stealing so bad. Is his time to to catch the ball, throw the ball, and it actually get to second base is the worst in baseball. Okay. Now, framing, he was very good. +6, 86th percentile in framing. So they're both slightly flawed players, right? He hit 228 last year. Yasmani Grandal was 228, a 704 OPS, so a 95 OPS plus. So he can give you, for catcher, it's roughly average defense. I'm sorry, average offense. He can give you roughly average offense behind the plate. He's a great framer. He's terrible with the running game. Okay? James McCann is a worse offensive catcher. He is not a great framer, but he's pretty decent at controlling the running game. He's not great, but he's decent. He's slightly above average. And he's a good blocker. Is any of that worth spending additional money to get? You have Curt Casali, offensively, he hit 194 in San Francisco last year. He spent time in Miami. He spent time, I think, with the Cubs late in the year. He's not fantastic offensively, but from a defensive perspective, he's considered to be solid. It's really tough to try to evaluate this on StatCast because he had such few time, but he did grade out below average on pop time. His blocking wasn't great, but he's also already in the organization and he's pretty cheap. Sandy Leon, we have no idea what he is recently because he's not been in the majors for a full year. And again, this whole thing is, why not just promote Drake Baldwin? Why would you sign somebody else from outside the organization for 2 weeks when you could just either promote Baldwin or keep one of the veterans you already have? Can you get incrementally better? Sure. Yeah, McCann and Grandal are probably probably a little more of complete catchers than Kurt Casale at this point in his career, or Sandy Leon at this point in his career. And there's a lot we don't know about Sandy Leon, honestly. We don't have StatCast on catching metrics from last year from Gwinnett to tell you. But is the slight, possibly incremental improvement you might get 5% better? Is that worth bringing in a guy 3 weeks before opening day who doesn't know any of these pitchers? Because so much of catching, and I alluded to it earlier, so much of catching is things we haven't quantified. How you call a game, how you handle a pitching staff, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of all of the different arms that are coming into the game and all of that. So like, at this point, wouldn't you just stick with one of the guys you have? Why would you spend $1 million, prorated, whatever it might end up being, on one of these veterans and a Grandal or McCann when you can just promote one of the guys who's already here, who already knows your pitchers? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me to go out and make an additional ad. You can promote Drake. Baldwin's been in camp for 2 years now. He knows, these pitchers know him. They've gone on the record. Chris Sale talked about it, I think, on Tuesday, that he likes throwing to Drake Baldwin. He likes Drake Baldwin. He's impressed with Drake Baldwin. It just doesn't make any sense. What I'm willing to bet happened here is the Braves, as they should, reached out to the agents for those players just to check in, just to see, are they getting ready to sign? What would their contract demands be if we were to bring one of them in as a fallback in case there's another injury or all of these catchers just look like hot garbage in the rest of camp? That's probably the most likely scenario. And then John Heyman goes out and says, hey, the Braves are thinking about signing one of these catchers. They're not thinking about it. They're checking in on it if they need to. But they're not, I'm willing to bet they're not actively considering which of these guys should we sign instead of promoting one of the 3 other options we have to cover 2 to 3 weeks without Sean Murphy. Increasingly unlikely that they'll sign one of these guys unless they bring one of these guys in to start the season. If it turns out that Casale and Leon both leave, maybe they offer one of these guys a minor league deal to start the season in Gwinnett so they have another depth option, kind of like Leon, how they brought Leon in last year when Murphy got hurt to have a depth option in Gwinnett in case there was another injury. Honestly, if you're looking at acquiring a catcher from outside the organization, my whole point is you should call up the Pirates and you should say, hey, you have 1 million catchers and like 4th on your pecking order behind Joey Bart, behind Indy Rodriguez, behind Henry Davis is Jason DeLay. He's 30 years old. He has some time in the majors. He has 134 games in the majors where he's hit 231. And he's got 2 options left. Let's trade for Jason DeLay. We'll give you some arm, not even on the top 30. We get a catcher who's 30 years old. By the way, happy birthday, Jason DeLay. It's on Friday, March 7th. Happy birthday, Jason DeLay. I hope for your birthday you get traded to the Atlanta Braves. And they say, hey, here's a decent catcher who has options and MLB experience, and we can keep him in the organization for at least 2 more seasons. That's what I would do. If I'm going to acquire a catcher from outside, I'm not going to sign one of these veterans when I have these veterans at home. I'm just going to go trade for a guy like Jason DeLay who can help me solve this problem this year and next year before I then have to figure out what to do with him, especially given the fact that Chadwick Tromp doesn't have any options. And odds are, if you replace him with Drake Baldwin during the season or next year, he's probably gone to some other team who grabs him on waivers. In just a second, let's go over where some of the common Vegas odds are for these pitchers and for these hitters, because there's some really interesting trends I want to tell you about. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby. Now that we've talked about this catcher situation with Jon Heyman, now we're going to talk about some of the interesting odds in Vegas for different Braves pitchers and hitters. And we're going to start off with the pitchers, okay? A lot of these odds come from sportsbetting.ag. They have their own lines. They're also compiling a lot of other lines from other sports books and things like that. And when it comes to pitching, the trend that I have noticed here, going through a lot of these props, whether it's Cy Young, which obviously was won by Chris Sale last year, or it's different who's going to lead in pitching wins, who's going to lead in strikeouts, things like that. The common trend that I am noticing is Vegas has a clear pecking order in Atlanta's rotation, and it's not what you would think, okay? For example, let me pull it up here. Let's go with strikeouts, right? Who's going to lead baseball in strikeouts? And spoiler alert, no Braves are number one here, right? There's not Braves in the top three. Some of the common names you would expect. Paul Skeens, plus 400 to lead baseball in strikeouts. Okay, that tracks. He was absurd last year. Tariq Skubal, Garrett Crochet, feels iffy. Jacob deGrom's fifth in here. You're really banking on help with Jacob deGrom. I love Jacob deGrom. You're banking on health there. The first Brave to show up in the strikeouts is in 9th place. So 9th best odds here. And it's Chris Sale at plus 2,200. And this one is interesting because this one is different in the pecking order from all of the rest, right? The next Brave to show up is actually Spencer Strider at plus 6,600 in 22nd place. And the important thing to remember here with Spencer Strider is he has, when he's healthy and pitches a full season, he has shown to be one of the best strikeout artists in the modern game right now. He finished 2023. He led baseball in wins and winning percentage, 20-5, 800 winning percentage, 281 strikeouts, but it was a 13.5 strikeouts per nine, which that's also his career number, by the way, 13.5. And that is consistently like one of the best in baseball history. If you look at the all-time leaderboards, he doesn't have enough innings to qualify, but it's like Blake Snell and Chris Sale, and they're in the 11s. If Spencer Strider can keep up this pace, bonkers, right? He would be one of the greatest by rate strikeout artists in baseball history. Ronaldo Lopez is the next guy on here, tied for 35th at plus 10,000. But outside of strikeouts, there's a very clear Braves pecking order. For instance, let's go to pitching wins, okay? For pitching wins, and for those of you on YouTube, sorry I'm turning away from you to look at this other screen, but I've got two screens. It's a big board here on this. For pitching wins, Chris Sale is tied for 6th. He's tied with Pablo Lopez, he's tied with Garrett Crochet, and with Framber Valdez. Ahead of him, by the way, Zach Wheeler, Tariq Skubal, Paul Skeens, Dylan Cease, Corbin Burns, Pablo Lopez. Good list, right? Chris Sale tied for 6th at plus 1,800. I'm sorry, tied for 7th at plus 1,800. Tied for 36th, Spencer Schwellenbach, plus 5,000. And then tied for 44th, and that's as far as I went, Ronaldo Lopez at plus 6,600. Pitching wins, Chris Sale, number 1, obviously led the NL last year in that. Schwellenbach, 2nd on the Braves. Ronaldo Lopez on 3rd. And when you go to the Cy Young odds, spoiler alert, it's the exact same order for Braves pitchers. You have Chris Sale tied for 6th at plus 1,800 with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. You have Spencer Schwellenbach tied for 13 with Zach Gallen at plus 2,800. And you have Ronaldo Lopez at plus 8,000. He is 29th. He is sandwiched between Aaron Nola, Brandon Woodruff, who I don't even think's thrown in spring yet because of that shoulder thing that he missed all last year for, and Brandon Pfaadt of the Diamondbacks. And then right after him is Mackenzie Gore of the Nationals, Sean Manaea, who's not even going to be available for opening day for the Mets, Nick Lodolo, Jesus Luzardo, Clay Holmes, and Nick Pivetta. So it is very clear that the pecking order here for Braves pitchers when it comes to Vegas, outside of strikeouts, is Sale, Schwellenbach, Lopez. When I think the assumption, and this is, I think, just the veteran deference that Snit has to, it feels like the order you're going to see them in the regular season, at least to start the year, is going to be Sale, Lopez, Schwellenbach. Vegas thinks that Schwellenbach, as of right now, is functionally the number 2 in the rotation, with Lopez being third. And then you have your group of Holmes, Anderson, Smith-Shawver, Elder, whatever, figuring out the 4 and the 5. And then Strider comes back in and you put him in there somewhere. I thought that was interesting. While we're in here real quick, because there's no easy place to put this, Rookie of the Year, the only Brave on the board, I'm pretty sure we all know this is probably not going to happen at this point, Hurston Waldrop is tied for 16th at plus 6,600. He's tied with Matt Mervis of the Marlins, first baseman, Brady House of the Nationals, third baseman, and then right behind them is Chase Dollander of the Rockies. If a Rockies pitcher wins Rookie of the Year, I'll freaking eat a hat, man. That's wild to me. And then also, if you were curious, Snit is tied for 8th at plus 1,000 for NL Manager of the Year with Mike Schilt of the San Diego Padres. In just a second, let's get to the hitters, because there is I'm not going to say a changing of the guard, but there is a really interesting young Braves hitter who's getting a lot of love, and there's a lot of belief in Ronald Acuna Jr. And we'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby talking about some of the favorites to win awards among Atlanta Braves in 2025. And to get it out of the way real quick, Comeback Player of the Year is Ronald Acuna Jr. is the favorite. Like, it's a 3-man race at this point. Ronald Acuna Jr. plus 300. Sandy Alcantara of the Marlins at plus 375. Him getting traded to the American League mid-season would make that really difficult. By default, on these odds, give it to Ronald. And then Spencer Strider at plus 550 is third. Spencer Strider famously lost Rookie of the Year to Michael Harris. It would be probably a little bit frustrating for him to come back and then to lose Comeback Player of the Year to a teammate, just like he lost Rookie of the Year to a teammate. But when you get to, there's a pretty common order for a lot of these awards, except for hits. This one is really interesting. First, this is a full baseball. So this is AL and NL together. Who's going to lead baseball in hits this year? Bobby Witt Jr. is favored to lead baseball in hits over Luis Arraez, which you love a guy who can actually do more than just slap a single. Shout out Bobby Witt. Please do that. Fun fact, Freddie Freeman's tied for 4th best odds at plus 1,100. Assuming his ankle's okay. He said he's going to have to manage the ankle, I think, the first half of the year. But the first Atlanta Brave on the board for hits in the regular season is tied for 12th. And it's Michael Harris. It's not Jurickson Profar. It's not Ronald Acuna Jr. It's not Ozzie Albies or anybody else. It's Michael Harris. He is tied with Young-Hoo Lee of the Giants, and he's just ahead of Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Chourio in the odds to lead baseball in hits. Now, I wonder if some of this was expecting him to be leading off, and it looks like he's not. All of the lineups we've gotten in spring have been like full team lineups, right? Where they have almost all veterans in there. Have looked like he's going to be batting like 5th or 6th. It looks like the plan is just Profar, Riley, Olsen, Ozuna. And then when Acuna comes back, they're just going to drop everybody down a spot. That's what it looks like, honestly. Riley's batting 2nd, and I don't think I've seen him bat 2nd a ton in his career. But anyway, the first Brave on this list is Michael Harris, which is a ringing endorsement of the young guy who I have been really high on, as he should be like 2020, maybe 25, 25, or 30 this year if he's fully healthy and rakes. I'm high on Michael Harris this year. Vegas obviously is from a hits perspective as well. Riley is the next Braves hitter on this list. He's tied for 24th at plus 5,000. He's tied with Mookie Betts, Ellie De La Cruz, Francisco Lindor, Aaron Judge, Manny Machado, Corbin Carroll, Rafi Devers, and Jeremy Pena. He's ahead of Bryce Harper. Fun fact there. Just like he's considered in the same boat as Mookie Betts, right? As far as hits there. And then Ozzie Albies is tied for 38th, actually with William Contreras. That's a little bit awkward. Tied for plus 6,600. Tied it for 38th, Ozzie Albies, plus 6,600. Homers and RBI go exactly in the order you think they would. Olsen's first for Braves, Riley's next, and then Ozuna. For home runs, Olsen's actually 13th, which is a little wild to me that he's 13th for home runs. A dude that in 2023 hit 54 of them. But some of the names ahead of him make sense. Aaron Judge is the favorite. Shohei Ohtani's number 2. There's a jump after that. Brent Rooker, Kyle Schwarber, Fernando Tatis, Pete Alonso, Yordan, Juan Soto. Another jump in odds. Mike Trout, Kyle Tucker, Gunnar Henderson, Anthony Santander, Matt Olson, kind of all in a group. Vlad Guerrero's the back of that. Another jump, and then you get Harper, Ramirez, Christian Walker. Then Austin Riley comes in. So Riley's at plus 4,000, and Ozuna's at plus 6,600. RBI, similar pattern, but better odds for the Braves. Matt Olson's 4th at plus 1,000. Riley's tied for 15th at plus 2,200, so he's 15th in both of those. Ozuna's tied for 17th at 2,800. And Ronald Acuna Jr. made this board. Ronald Acuna Jr. made the leading baseball and RBI board at plus 8,000. He's tied for 29th with Julio Rodriguez, Vinny Pasquantino, Salvador Perez, Ketel Marte, Jackson Merrill, and Matt Wallner of the Twins. So a little surprise in there on some of those names. The MVP odds are by far the most interesting to me, though. Because, as you can expect, Shohei Ohtani's the runaway National League favorite, plus 175. But the first Brave on the MVP odds is Ronald Acuna Jr. at 9th with plus 2,000. He's just ahead of Freddie Freeman on the MVP odds. I understand the whole two-dimension thing. But to me, just the thought of him coming in May 2nd is what I've talked about, the date that he told me. May 2nd to come in and start his season. And then to think that he has a better MVP shot than Matt Olson at plus 4,000. Michael Harris is plus 3,300. Michael Harris is on here ahead of Matt Olson. 16th is Harris. 17th is Olson. Riley's tied for 19th. Ozuna's tied for 23rd. Chris Sale's the very last person on the board. Tied for 28th at plus 10,000. Is it possible that Ronald Acuna Jr. comes back in May and can get into the top 10 of the MVP balloting? I don't know, but it would be a great season for Atlanta if that happened. Absolutely. This has been Braves Today for Friday, March 7th. You guys, thanks for hanging out with us all week. It's been a fun one. We'll be back on Monday, barring some sort of massive move. If you have show ideas, comments, questions, I want to hear from you. I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. You can email us, contact@bravestoday.com. And then if you're listening on audio, do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop that next episode, and maybe also leave us a 5-star review. That'd be great. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.